Hello everyone and welcome back to another World War III video. This time we're going to be talking about the best loadout in my opinion for early game players who are new to the game, players who maybe coming from like Battlefield or Enlisted or Call of Duty or other games, kind of similar to World War III, but maybe have a little bit different kind of recoil. World War III is pretty heavy horizontal recoil and recoil just in general, so there's a couple weapons that will help you guys out along the way. So let's jump into it. Starting here with your equipment loadout, guys, and then we'll talk about strikes after that. It is the M417 as your primary weapon. This gun is amazing. It's got great damage, great range, great fire rate, great reload speed, great recoil, and great accuracy. There's really nothing this gun doesn't do well. It is an absolute powerhouse of a weapon. You can use this thing all the way to the end game and you would do just fine. In fact, I kind of expect this thing to see a little bit of a nerf going into open beta. And if it doesn't, I would be kind of surprised because it is actually just that powerful. Fantastic, fantastic gun. You can really not go wrong with what you run on this thing. I think one of the default loadouts comes with like a Juno grip and a 3X or something like that. You can run that if you want to, perfectly reasonable. Some of the founder editions I think have blueprints for this gun as well. But honestly, guys, if you have none of that and you don't want to run any of that stuff, running a red dot or maybe a 2X, 3X if you want to play a little bit further back, and then a classical vertical grip and a muzzle brake is all you really need for this gun to be good. Running this horizontal recoil reduction, fantastic. That's what you want. Later on when you unlock the UKM angle grip, you're going to want to equip that as well. But the classic vertical grip is what you're going to start with. The reason for this is that horizontal recoil is pretty substantial, especially on the M417. So reducing that is going to give you that basically laser beam accuracy and very minimal recoil. You're going to increase your vertical recoil by a small bit, but it's really not that big of a deal. Horizontal is a much better stat to reduce than vertical in World War III because of the fact that horizontal is harder to account for as you're firing the weapon. It bounces to the left and the right as opposed to vertical, which you can just oppose by pulling down on your mouse. Like I mentioned before, the alpha muzzle brake is going to offset that increased vertical recoil. It is going to give you 10% reduced recoil for a net gain of 5%. If you really wanted to, you could also run this compensator here for even more horizontal recoil reduction, but I found it's not really that necessary, and the gun is a pretty big laser beam at close quarters and even at medium to long range without this horizontal recoil reduction. So you can just reduce your vertical, make your life a little bit easier in that regard. But other than that, guys, anything else you want to run, if you want to run the marksman barrel, if you want to run this AN PEC 15, you can run some extra ammo. Anything that you guys want to run on this thing is absolutely reasonable. If you want to run a 3X with a secondary sight, you're going to be just fine doing that. Now, moving on to the rest of the equipment here, G17, nothing to write home about. You're probably not going to be using this too much. Your M417 is your heavy hitter. You're going to use this whenever you run out of ammo in your M417 and need to switch to your secondary. As for your armor plate, I recommend running a ceramic with a titanium head armor. You could forgo the titanium for a Kevlar and then run steel armor plates. It's a little bit more efficient for medium mobility. You're going to fill up all your slots, but I just think that the head armor is too valuable to not take. So just getting do or making do with the ceramic is absolutely fine. I think you're going to be just fine doing that. Primary gadget med pack, nothing surprising there. Frag grenades. You could run anti-tank mines if you want to. That is one flaw of this class and this loadout is you have no anti-tank capabilities in any way, shape, or form. But the anti-tank mine is not proactive, and so you're really just going to be placing it down somewhere. And so I think frag grenades, doubling down on your capabilities as an anti-infantry powerhouse is going to be a lot better. And just really don't tango with any enemy vehicles. Just avoid them as best you can, move on, and you'll be just fine. Your custom backpack stuff here, really none of this matters a whole lot. You can run a combo suppressor if you have it unlocked, but it just doesn't matter. Smoke grenade, concussion grenade, none of this stuff is particularly relevant until you start unlocking later stuff like the first aid kit. So I don't recommend even worrying about this stuff. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Now, let's move on to talking about strikes and your call-ins for this loadout. So in my opinion with strikes, there are really three different kind of ways to think about strikes. You've got your early game strikes. These are cheap strikes. These are things that you can call in the early game to get yourself some control of the map before the heavy hitters and the tanks start rolling in. These are typically drones, stuff like the Leviathan, stuff like the quadrocopter. Those are fantastic early game stuff. I recommend you guys run those. The Leviathan is a great tool for You know, just taking out enemy infantry, using it as a little armored drone that can just gun down enemy infantry, get some control over the map. It'll get blasted by RPGs. If you can end up getting some anti-tank capabilities on it, it can do some serious damage to stuff like BMPs and you know, like what are they called? Excuse me, boomerangs and Wolverine, stuff like that. Very, very useful in that regard. And then, of course, the quadricopter is fantastic. I'm not biased in that regard in any way, shape, or form. But the quadricopter is good. It's 750 strike points. That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket for what you're going to be earning in the match. And you just call this thing in, get some cheeky kills, take some enemies off an objective, fly it through a window from a guy that's holding an angle, go kill a sniper sitting in the back of the map. There's just numerous ways of using the quadricopter to get some cheeky, easy kills, and oftentimes you're even going to be able to get maybe a double or even a triple kill with this thing. I love the quadricopter. Definitely recommend that you guys just run this thing in the early game, call it in a couple times. If your tank's on cooldown, if your IFV's on cooldown, call this in, do some damage, right? Otherwise, guys, your UAV should definitely be the flying eye. Do not run stuff like the jammers. I don't think they're worth running. The flying eye is perfectly reasonable. It is a quick call in, gives you a little area around yourself. When you're moving on an objective, just drop that bad boy in. It calls in instantly, and it gives you a great idea of an objective, and you're going to be able to see everybody on your mini map on that objective, and you can get a edge over them. So definitely recommend running the flying eye. I love this thing. I used it so much whenever I was in the early game until it was eventually replaced by the Barracuda. Otherwise, guys, your supports are really not that relevant. I'd recommend running JSOWs if you have it unlocked. Otherwise, JDAMs are just fine. JSOWs are a great tool for taking out enemy vehicles that are, you know, taking an objective. It has a quick call in. It'll be able to take out any enemy vehicle, including tanks. And finally, the Leo will be your main vehicle for your late game. So as you kind of just farm up points in the course of the match, as you cap objectives, as you get kills, you're going to slowly stack up those points. Once you get around 5,000 or so, I'd recommend to stop calling stuff in and try to work towards getting that Leo and then hunting enemy vehicles and taking out enemy infantry and using it as a big powerhouse tank. That's it, guys. That's my recommendation for your loadouts. Early game strikes, your flying eyes, combined with JDAMs, JSOWs, Leviathans, quadricopters, and then finally evening it out at the end and transitioning at the end into IFVs like the Boomerang or main battle tanks like the Leo. And that's it, guys. That's the video. Those are my recommendations for your guys' early game loadouts here, getting started in World War III until you graduate and you start getting some other weapons that you want to try out. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys used or in the early game, what you guys found to be successful, and you know, let me know and let others know the kind of tips and tricks for new players that you guys have. I'd love to hear them, and I'm sure others would love to hear that as well. Remember, as always, to like and subscribe. I do appreciate that, and it does help me out. And finally, guys, you can check me out, twitch.tv/HeyQuadro, and join our community Discord. The link for all that stuff is in the description below. Without anything else, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.